What if the Ides of March never happened? What if the blades were never drawn and Caesar walked out of the Senate alive? What if one man's survival changed the fate of the Roman world and perhaps the entire course of history? Today, we dive into an alternate timeline where Julius Caesar lives, and history takes a very different turn. In 44 BC, Julius Caesar stood at the height of his power. He was a military genius, a political mastermind, and a figure loved and feared across the Roman world, but many saw him as a threat to the Republic. The Senate believed he was becoming a tyrant, a king in everything but name. So, on the Ides of March, March 15th, a group of senators, including his close friend Brutus, stabbed Caesar 23 times on the floor of the Senate. But what if they failed? What if Caesar had sensed the plot? Or what if Mark Antony arrived moments earlier? In this timeline, Caesar survives, and Rome changes forever. With his enemies exposed, Caesar would likely purge the Senate of opposition. Those who plotted against him would be executed or exiled. The Senate, once the heart of Roman politics, would become a puppet institution if it survived at all. The Republic, already fragile, would effectively end, not under Augustus, but under Caesar himself. Caesar had already been declared dictator for life. Surviving the plot would only cement his image as an invincible leader, even godlike in the eyes of some. It's not hard to imagine that he would have crowned himself emperor in name, not just power. After all, he was already being worshipped in parts of the empire, but Caesar wasn't just a ruler, he was a conqueror. And he had plans, big ones. Before his death, Caesar was preparing a massive campaign eastward to conquer Parthia, one of Rome's most formidable enemies. This would have been Rome's revenge for the humiliating defeat at Carrhae decades earlier, where the Parthians annihilated a Roman army and captured their battle standards. Imagine Caesar leading his legions across the Euphrates, pushing deep into Mesopotamia. With his unmatched military skill, Rome might have crushed Parthia, gaining control over key trade routes and extending its reach further into Asia. Success in the East would have filled Rome's coffers with unimaginable wealth, and Caesar's ego with even more power. Some historians believe he would have used the victory to expand into India or Arabia, following in the footsteps of Alexander the Great, whom Caesar deeply admired. But what about Rome itself? What about the people? With Caesar alive, there may have been a period of forced peace, a Pax Caesarea. Rome would be united, but not through consensus, through control. Civil wars like the one between Octavian and Antony might never occur, because neither would gain enough ground to challenge Caesar directly. And speaking of Octavian, Caesar's great-nephew and heir, he may never rise to power. At just 18 years old, Octavian was still in Caesar's shadow. Without Caesar's death, he would remain a loyal subordinate, or perhaps be quietly sidelined. Mark Antony, on the other hand, could become Caesar's second-in-command or his greatest rival. Would they eventually clash over control of the empire? Would Caesar eliminate Antony as he did other threats? And what about Cleopatra? Caesar and Cleopatra had a son, Caesarion. In this alternate reality, Caesar might legitimize him as his heir, binding Rome and Egypt together in an unprecedented political alliance. The love triangle that once sparked civil war, Caesar, Cleopatra, and Antony, might never happen. A long-reigning Caesar could completely rewrite Roman society. He had already begun reforming the calendar, giving us the Julian calendar still used today. With decades more in power, he could reshape Roman law, citizenship, the military, even religion. Would Christianity rise in the same way under a stable Caesar regime? Or would a strong imperial cult, the worship of Caesar as divine, delay or suppress it? The Roman Republic would not just die, it would dissolve into something entirely new, A centralized empire far earlier than in real history, Latin culture, Roman engineering, and Caesar's political philosophies could spread faster and deeper into Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Imagine a Europe where Caesarian is not just a title, but a living political system for centuries, where borders are different, languages evolve differently, where democracy as we know it may never emerge in the same form. Of course, all empires fall, even Caesar's. Would his successors maintain his legacy, or would his death simply come later, sparking a different kind of civil war? Would Caesar become a symbol of lasting peace, or a tyrant whose unchecked power doomed Rome even faster? Alternate history doesn't give us answers, but it gives us something just as powerful: perspective. So I ask you, what do you think would have?